last chapter here, chapter 13, is pretty simple, but I even have some Kahoots for it. We might as well do it. Scheduled reports and alerts. So scheduled reports will automatically run at a certain time. And like I say, this is the kind of thing you often need to accompany a weekly summary of security problems, sales, whatever you might have. And it can send these reports by email or otherwise. As always, you just make a search, and then you save it as a report, and then you give it a title, description, and you decide whether you should be able to adjust the time range, or maybe it should just always be the last week or something, and save it, and then you can choose to schedule it. You can choose to, you can automatically run. It can run every hour, every day, every week, every month, or on any schedule you choose, of course. And you can choose what time range is used. It would be like the last 24 hours or some other time range you like, typically relative to the schedule. If you have it every week, it would typically be the last week, obviously. And you can have a time frame in which to run it, so it can vary a little, which is common in case you're going to have the machine busy and you don't want a whole bunch of them running at the same time. And then you can choose what will happen when it's done. It can make a log event. It can send it to a lookup table, so it can be referred to later. It can send it to some kind of telemetry endpoint into Splunk as events, run a script, send an email, or send an HTTP request to any website, so you can send it to some other system like Slack or whatever other system you have. This is a pretty good set of choices, so you should be able to take your report and send it to whatever system you have where your reports go. So here's how you send an email. That's an option. And you can edit the permissions, so you control who's allowed to modify this report and so on. All right. And you can run it as somebody else if the report needs to have more permissions than the user that's going to be running it. All right. And you can embed it in a web page. All right. And then there are alerts. Now, I don't know. I'm a little skeptical about alerts, but I guess it makes sense because Splunk is constantly receiving data. I just know real-time queries are considered very expensive, but alerts might not be. I haven't played with them. But the idea of an alert is it watches, Splunk always has your log data coming in, and it could be watching for something bad and sending an alert right away when a bad thing happens. And you could argue that might be good. I think most people use a real IDS for that, but you can use Splunk as an IDS. I'm just doubtful about its efficiency at that task. But anyway, you can specify an alert whenever the search reaches a certain condition, and then it'll create an entry, log an event, send it to a lookup file, send emails, webhook, or whatever, just like before. You can do any of those things when the condition appears. So you can run a search. It'll run a search, searching for whatever events you like, and you can choose whether it's going to be private or not, and then you choose an alert type. A schedule alert will just run at periodic times and then take some action if it passes the test. So you could set it to run every hour to see how many errors there are on the web server, and if it gets above a certain threshold, then send an email to the web server owner saying your web server seems to be having too many errors. Or you do a real-time alert, which is the real expensive one, which is constantly running this search. And that's the one which I highly doubt you would use, because I think it's going to use far more resources than an IDS and essentially do the same job. Splunk is highly inefficient at doing that, I think. Anyway, then you can schedule it to run whatever time you like, and you can set the trigger condition. So it's going to run this query, and then it's going to look at the results to see if it meets your condition, like more than 100 errors or something like that. And you have a lot of possible errors. You can do whenever a result is returned, then trigger it, or if you have to have a certain number of results, or the results have to come from a certain number of different hosts, or different number of sources, or any kind of custom condition. You've got a programming language you can have. So one thing that you do with Bro, now Zeek, is you'd say, if I get a request more than, say, 5 requests to an invalid address from the same IP address in a minute, then block that IP address because there's some kind of attacker, that kind of thing. And this is also common for login attacks. There's always brute force attacks against SSH and RDP. So you'd say if the same IP tries to log in more than 10 times in 5 minutes and it fails every time, then block them. They're an attacker. That's not a real user trying to get in, that sort of thing. So, and by the way, you could in principle do that with Splunk. You could use this custom condition with the query. You could actually be sending requests to your firewall to block them. It's not built into Splunk, but since you had the ability to run a script of any kind, you could run a script to change a firewall. You could recreate an IDS with Splunk. I just don't think it's the most efficient way to do it. All right. And there's the example of number of results is greater than 2 within 1 minute, then it triggers. All right. So you can trigger just once, and then it won't keep sending alerts if the bad thing keeps happening. This happened in one of my consulting gigs last week. It was like 2 in the morning, and my phone went blong. I looked, there's an alert. Then blong, blong, blong. They sent 900 emails to everybody on our team because there was some problem on the server. And it was telling us, blong, 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 blong. It was kind of nuts. So you want to avoid that here. Tell it, if it happens, just send one, and if it happens again, don't send any more for a while. All right, or throttle it. Yeah, that's the thing. All right, and all right, it does where it'll do it for each result, or you can throttle it so you don't get a flood of events. All right, and you can add trigger actions, which do all these things, like we say, output results to a lookup or a log, or run a script, or send an email, or send a web request of any type that you describe to send it to any other service with a web API. All right, and you can add these alert actions to triggered alerts. And then you can decide if you want to log the event, you can control all the information about the log entry, of course. All right, and I think that's it. I think we're down to sending emails the same as before. And you can view these triggered alerts, of course, to see the results of them. All right, and edit them. There are permissions on the alert, just like other Splunk objects. All right, and the rest of it is just talking about a future course, which probably has changed by now. Like I say, this course, I think I'm using this for 2020. Yeah, this stuff is, 2018. Okay, so it's been like 5 years. I think they've changed this course. It's not free anymore, so there may be some changes. I think they changed their certification somewhat, and also Splunk just got bought by Cisco, so we can expect everything to change more, so be aware of that. All right, but anyway, the product is not going to change that much, and other products all work very similarly. All right, let's try a Kahoot. I should have them in one of my windows here, and I do. Be able to get on the City College Wi-Fi. All right. What's that? Got your name on something? Oh, okay. That's what this is. Okay. Yeah. If you use a fake name, you'll have to tell me your real name if you ever want your points. My grader told me, I turned in one of these and he said, I don't know who any of these people are. I said, well, students have to use a real name or eventually tell us. Oh my. A lot of people come. A lot of people in the room too. Like you got in. You folks get in? Okay. Well, let's give it a try. All right. So which one can run every day, week, or month? schedule report is the best answer. It occurs to me, technically an alert probably could do that too, although it would be very strange to do it so rarely. But normally, the schedule report is probably the best answer. All right. Anyway. All right. Which one can send output to a log file or an email? Both of them can. They have pretty much the same outputs. All right, which one can trigger on the number of hosts? All right, that's an alert. All right, good. Looks like real names. That's good. My grader will be able to find you. Not that one. Is that you? That's your looks you mean? Well, that's